Thank you for joining me for lesson 122 of our Sefer HaMitzvos study. Today, we're covering three mitzvahs: negative mitzvah 42, positive mitzvah 120, and negative mitzvah 210. First of all, um, Deuteronomy 22:11 says, "You shall not wear a garment of sha'atnez." This is a garment that is a mixture of wool and linen. And we say garment, it's broader actually than just um, a like a piece of clothing. It would be like a blanket, or your bed coverings, these kinds of things. So it's forbidden to wear a garment woven or sewn of wool and linen, as was the practice of ancient pagan priests and is still practiced today, during Maimonides' times among Egyptian monks. But even actually in the temple, one thing to note is that in the temple, they were commanded to wear sha'atnez. The priests, certainly the high priest, wore a mixture of wool and linen. And so in certain contexts, this is not forbidden. But for instance, if the high priest is um, going about and doing things that are not his um, avoda, his service in the temple, and he's wearing the high priestly garments, which are made of sha'atnez, he has to take them off because it would be forbidden for him to wear sha'atnez. So only in certain locations, in certain times and contexts, is sha'atnez allowed. And there's another would be when having techelet on your tzitzis. The rest of the tassel can be linen, and the thread that is blue, made of wool, and that is, even though it's tied, it's spun and it's woven and it's knotted. That is permissible, and even the according to the oral tradition, the way it's to be done. The next mitzvah is positive mitzvah 120. The mitzvah to leave the edges of the fields for the poor. It says, "You shall leave them over," in Leviticus 19:10. The whole verse reads, "And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you collect the fallen individual grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God." So the corners, the corners, or the edge of your grain and your fruit crops, is to be left for the poor and for the stranger. The also certainly the converts, is the word ger here. Rambam interprets to mean the converts, but it does definitely relates to strangers, and even um, any Gentile, it would be permitted to take from the edges of the field. Um, uh, if somebody takes and they did not actually need that, then the owner of the field can scold them, tell them to leave. But otherwise, someone should be left in peace to collect. If they're collecting that, they probably do really need it, because it's a very humbling thing to be picking up what was dropped, or excuse me, but taking from the edges of the field. It's you're doing this you're probably actually need. And finally, Leviticus 23:22 says, "Do not remove the corners of your field when you reap the harvest." So before we're talking about the edges, now we're talking about the corners. Um, and this is negative mitzvah 210. It says, "Do not remove the corners of your field when you reap the harvest. It's forbidden to harvest the entire field without leaving over the edge for the needy." And it's also important to point out what the sages say is that there's no limit to how much you could leave. Your corners, your edges could be as big or as small as you have generosity. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day in every way.